The 2025 NCAA March Madness Men's Tournament is back, and this time it is bringing all the feels. The biggest event in college sports tips off March 18th, and you don't want to miss a second of the heart-pumping action. Catch all the clutch shots, big-time plays, upsets, Cinderellas, Blue Bloods, and more. Tune in to the NCAA Men's Division I Basketball Championship March 18th through April 7th on TBS, CBS, TNT, True TV, and Stream on Max.
Support comes from ServiceNow. We're for people doing the creative work they actually want to do. That's why this ad was written and read by a real person and not AI. You know what people don't want to do? Boring, busy work. Now with AI agents built into the ServiceNow platform, you can automate millions of repetitive tasks in every corner of your business, IT, HR, and more, so your people can focus on the work that they want to do. That's putting AI agents to work for people. It's your turn. Visit servicenow.com.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
The 10th President of the International Olympic Committee, Mrs. Kirsty Coventry.
This is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic podcast, covering the games all the time rather than once every 4 years. I'm John.
And I'm Michael. And despite John and my obvious abilities in this area, it's not us, but we do have a new leader in the world of Olympic sports. And we will introduce Mrs. Kirsty Coventry.
Yes, we'll hear from her. We'll get reaction from around the sporting globe and give you our take on it as well.
Plus, we've also got some of the other headlines from the 144th IOC session, which has been taking place in Greece all this week.
Yeah, this is an extra special pod after a historic and for some surprising week. If you're listening for the very first time, welcome to Anything But Footy. You can follow us on social media, all the social media, or check out our website, anythingbutfooty.com. So, as Michael said, Mrs. Kirsty Coventry, the double Olympic champion, 7-time medalist swimmer, is the 10th Olympic president. And she wants to work with the other candidates as she moves forward.
I just wanted to start off by really thanking the IOC members, the membership, the trust and confidence that they have put into me. It's a huge honor. I'm really looking forward to serving our movement. I also want to thank the other candidates. It was an incredible race. And through this journey of 6 months, there were so many very good exchanges amongst all members, including candidates. And I'm really looking forward to bringing them together, sitting down and identifying some of the very good ideas that we've all shared and realizing how we can work together to move those ideas forward.
So that is Kirsty Coventry in her very first press conference after being named president-elect of the International Olympic Committee. So remember, she was one of the 7 candidates bidding. I guess we should go through some of those facts and figures. There were 97 voting members in the room. The rules were that the person that was going to become the president needed 50% of those votes. So essentially from the 97, you needed, well, half of that is 49. That's half plus 1, 49. She needed 49 votes, and that's exactly what she got in round 1. So there was some audible gasps, actually, when they announced that all the voting was done and dusted in the first round of voting, because I think we felt, especially those of us that remember maybe the way London won the bid in Singapore in 2005, we felt that there would be candidates knocked out, if you like, and that we would get down maybe to the final 2 or the final 3, but it was all done and dusted in one vote. So the first female president, she's the youngest ever president, age 41. The first president from Africa, she's from Zimbabwe, who of course she won those medals for. And remember, Africa has never hosted an Olympic Games as well. So she did speak shortly after her election. Let's hear from her again now.
I'm extremely proud of both of those different identities that make up me. And I'm grateful as well to have been given a platform to work extremely hard over the last 6 months with IOC members to really, as you said, make sure that they know who I am and what values I hold dearly. And it wasn't just about being a woman or being from Africa. I'm so grateful that the members saw more than just gender or where I come from.
So Kirsty Coventry, the 5-time Olympian, has been an IOC member since 2013. She's been an executive board member from 2018 to 2021 and then from 2023 to the present day. So congratulations to her and the Olympic movement. Or is it? Isn't it just business as usual? Isn't this Thomas Bach, 13 years in charge? It should have been 8, but they carried on for a bit longer. The next one will be 8 years away. Isn't this just business as usual? He always said, or the rules were, that he could not influence the IOC members, and there's no suggestion there is, although some reports suggest that he certainly was backing Kirsty Coventry. But it's just very surprising, I think, is the phrase that I would use. You mentioned some of the numbers, Michael. Seb Coe, just 8 votes. Juan Antonio Samaranch, who we thought had a really good chance, 28 votes. And it does really show the other members, I think, got 12 votes between them. So if there'd been less candidates, maybe more would put up a fight. We said it was a 3-way battle. I just think maybe we had our British eye glasses on, that maybe we were swayed by what Seb Coe had achieved before. And Kirsty Coventry, I'll admit, she didn't impress me when she spoke to us at the media. I thought she should have been singing and dancing about the fact she was the first female president, etc., etc., etc. But it just feels like, okay, carry on as normal. Is that unfair?
Yeah, it feels like a continuity candidate to me. And, even then when she was questioned the press conference after the election, she was asked about being the first female. And the election is won at that point. So maybe now is the time to show that emotion about what it is to be the first female president or the first African president. But we've heard the comments were, I didn't want this to be a race about where I was from or my gender. I wanted this, to be a race about my ideas. But what are her ideas? I mean, you blogged about it extensively. We know that some of the candidates had some very radical ideas for the Olympic movement, talking about a complete and utter, reshaping of what the games might become or what the movement might become over the next 4 or 8 years. I think Seb Coe, for his part, had some ideas. He certainly wanted to continue the work that he'd done at World Athletics and continues to do at World Athletics. And of course, the first comments we got from Seb Coe afterwards came through World Athletics. Didn't really address the fact that he hadn't won the presidency, just obviously backed Kirsty Coventry, offered congratulations, gave support and said that we would continue to lobby hard to be the number one sport in the Olympic Games. So I think most of the other candidates had clear sort of ideas about what they were going to do in the future. For Kirsty Coventry, I never got that idea from her, that there were, the big ideas. What was going to be her difference in this campaign? And Thomas Bach's face. I mean, I watched the announcement live, and obviously Thomas Bach comes in and sort of introduces the Director General, who then was told to give the results. And then there was this age where the Director General was leafing through bits of paper. It's a bit like when I do a sports commentary, had all these bits of paper with bits highlighted on and little yellow Post-it notes attached. And I thought this was going to be a slightly more slicker thing at this point, but eventually came to the piece of paper and looked as shocked as everyone else was, when clearly it said on it, we've got a winner at the first vote. We'll see you in half an hour and tell you who it is. And Thomas Bach's face when they did make the announcement, I mean, he looked giddy. And lots of people have said that she was the preferred candidate, the one that would take his ideas, his views forward. And I wouldn't say the Olympics are in a bad place at the moment, so that's not necessarily 100% bad idea. But I do think this was an opportunity maybe just to see where it was, maybe look at what could be changed. And we spoke, didn't we? There's always learnings. We spoke in the last podcast about there will be learnings from the Paris Games. it all looked and felt great, but it wasn't 100% right on everything it tried to achieve and do. And future games hosts should learn from that. The IOC should have taken this as an opportunity to go, well, Thomas Bach's tenure has been good, excellent in places. It's been a tough time to be in charge with what has been happening in the world in terms of coming through a pandemic, issues with China, some of the host venues that he inherited and have subsequently been chosen, of course, have been controversial as well. We obviously have the continuing issues in the Middle East and, of course, in Eastern Europe with Russia and Ukraine as well. But if you're in charge of a big global organization for over a decade, these things are always going to crop up, and they will crop up for Kirsty Coventry, and they will crop up for whoever succeeds Kirsty Coventry.
And she's going to have to make a very quick decision on Russia in the Winter Olympics, for example, which is, as we know, less than a year away. And I think what I'm surprised at, well, I'm not surprised at, because I generally knew that the IOC would be a conservative vote, which I thought why Juan Antonio Samaranch had probably a bigger chance than Kirsty Coventry, because
or Seb Coe,
or Seb Coe. But he was the controversial choice from an IOC point of view, because he makes decisions.
He's a conservative with a big C.
Yes.
They're an organisation with a small C.
Yeah, and he makes decisions which they don't like. They didn't like him paying athletes for winning gold medals. They didn't like him banning Russia before anybody else banned Russia from athletics. And the IOC likes to sit on the fence and likes to, the federations can sort this out. It's the same with transgender and DSD athletes and testosterone. And he has come up with really, really strong rules for world athletics and been really clear about protecting women's sport. But Kirsty Coventry is a bit like, well, yeah, I'll protect it. But there's no, as you say, there wasn't this clear, absolutely, there was a red line that we will not cross because we are protecting women's sport. As a female athlete, surely that is what she should have been campaigning on, instead of saying, I don't want to be known as a female athlete. For goodness sake, this organisation's been going for 100 years and it's been all men and generally white. And now you've got a different view on it. You've got a female, you've got an African. Okay, yes, obviously it would be great at some point, like we saw with Barack Obama, to have a president or a leader of colour at some point. But this is where you've got to grab your opportunities and go, I'm going to make a difference. Now she might. Let's give her the she might now do the thing that we all want. I think interestingly you said Sebastian Coe sort of gave that first statement as World Athletics president, sort of saying we're the number one Olympic sport. We're looking forward to working with Kirsty through gritted teeth. You can imagine that statement was written. I think he has spoken to some of the press in the last hour or so as we record, and he said he was disappointed with the result, but that's what happens with elections. What he did say was that he was pleased that Kirsty Coventry is an athlete. We've got an athlete at the head of the organisation now. That is very important. But what I would say to that was Thomas Bach was an athlete as well. And the criticism didn't stop against him, as you say, at certain times.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting as well as an athlete, a swimmer. And I think it was quite pointed that the World Athletics statement was we are the main Olympic sport, because as we know in Los Angeles, they are flipping things around.
Yeah.
In that athletics is going to go the first week. Now, we have spoken to people at World Athletics. We were very fortunate to have quite a lot of time with Seb Coe, with John Ridgeon and other senior members of staff at World Athletics around the London Diamond League last year. And we chatted through this kind of idea. They don't seem too concerned about it. You know, they say that it will get the games off to a brilliant start, a quicker start perhaps than we've ever known. And then it may die away a little bit towards the end when the swimming takes over. America want the swimming to go second, as we've already discussed, because it is such a huge sport in the States, and they will do particularly well in it. That said, they did particularly well in track and field in Paris as well. So, yeah, it's interesting that, the person in charge of the big jamboree now is a swimmer. Maybe it's a little bit small-minded to say that she will, try and protect her sport. She's obviously transcended the swimming world at the moment, but it's a little bit of a subplot, I think, as we move forward as well.
So
just a bit,
just on that, we had a question on social media, and feel free to ever get in touch with us and give us your opinions. But it was from Alison and Jill, the team from the Flame Alive podcast, saying Does this mean that Seb Coe, because he didn't win and he's still being in charge of World Athletics, they were like, you know him much better than we do, but we worry that Coe will be putting out some pretty obstructionist stuff to make things difficult for Coventry. Now,
No.
I've replied to that saying I don't think that's the case, but I do think he will put athletics first, and
Oh, yeah.
he will carry on making decisions which he thinks are right for athletes, and he would have rolled out to all athletes in the Olympics.
Yeah, I think he is leading his organisation and he will stick up for his organisation where he feels right. I don't think his mindset will be to be deliberately obstructive to the other federations or the International Olympic Committee. He's still a member of the International Olympic Committee. Remember, he's not the president. He's still a member. There's still things he can do at the International Olympic Committee. There's still promotions he could receive in the International Olympic Committee. It'll be interesting as Kirsty Coventry's tenure evolves where that might lead, who might get elevated to those vice president positions as we go forward, for example. So I don't think he'll be deliberately obstructive, but like everyone, I mean, we see it in our game, don't we, that people that are journalists who then go across to be in PR or media and communications, you always think, well, they're employed because they understand the media or they know the media, but they're employed by that organization to protect that organization's reputation or whatever it is. So they have to put that organization first. And that is a different job, a different role to being a journalist reporting on that organization, for argument's sake. So I think Seb Coe will always stick up for athletics. He will always stick up for world athletics as long as he's there as well. And he always has said, hasn't he, first and foremost, and we do that thing, don't we, when we interview Seb Coe and say, introduce yourself. What are you? And he's got obviously a myriad of hats, and we've interviewed him in a myriad of different roles, but he always comes back to athlete. I think he still perceives himself as being an athlete first and foremost.
And I think what Kirsty maybe might not do, and certainly one of the criticisms of Thomas Bach, is that they don't speak as openly to the media as maybe Seb has in his career, and he's used the media as well. You can look at this campaign. Everybody thought Seb Coe was going to be a lot closer in this race because of how he helps and builds those relationships with other journalists and media. So we do have to take our British glasses off sometimes and go, this is a worldwide organisation, and it will be that for a very long time moving forward, as long as Kirsty Coventry moves it in the right direction. A couple of reactions, of course, as you'd expect. The IPC, the Paralympic, of course, IPC President Andrew Parsons, who said, I'd like to congratulate Kirsty on her election, and she's championed harnessing the power of sport to make a difference. Let's hope that is the case. The British Olympic Association warmly congratulates Kirsty Coventry, who's today become the first female and 10th president of the International Olympic Committee. That's incredible. It's
10.
Yeah, it's just
10.
incredible. And we know her well and look forward to working with her to grow the Olympic movement's global relevance and commercial success. That was from Andy Anson, the CEO. So there's kind of some handover now, isn't there, Michael? She's not in charge now, is she?
No, she's president-elect, and everyone is, very keen to put that. I noticed watching the TV feeds and everything, it was always president-elect. She's not the president yet. She will be the president, and she will have this handover period with Thomas Bach, which is the first time that that's ever happened. And let's see what she had to say about it.
This is a first in our movement, if I can start with your last question, where we have a proper handover transition, which I believe is so important. There will be numerous discussions over the next 3 months, but I'm looking forward to that. President Bach is leading our organization and has led our organization extremely well over the last few years. Not always easy, as many of you know. There's been many difficulties that he's overcome. So I would like to be able to have those conversations with him on, how he decided to tackle those and what advice he could give me for the future in terms of that.
So that's Kirsty Coventry talking about her handover period with Thomas Bach. She will succeed him. His 12-year tenure will officially end on Monday, the 23rd of June this year. The president has been elected by the IOC members by that secret ballot, although we do know the numbers. And Kirsty Coventry, as we understand it, will be in this position now for 8 years.
So, away from the IOC presidential election, there was lots of other news that will be overshadowed somewhat by the, of course, election of the first female president. But boxing was confirmed back in LA, as we told you earlier this week. It was a unanimous vote in day two of the session, and GB Boxing's reaction I thought was spot on social media. The moment we've all been waiting for. So they can now go and they can start qualifying and they can be ready for the next amount of games. There were some other headlines. I know Michael's going to talk to you about the Tour de France in a moment, but there were some other headlines around LA 28, Michael, and I want to highlight this because I thought it was a really interesting presentation from LA 28. And I'm not trying to sort of say that it was a typical American presentation, but it was a little,
But it was.
yeah, it was a little overconfident, a little like, hey, the big boys are in town. And it didn't go down very well, I didn't think, in the amongst the IOC members. So, for example, Reynold Hoover, the LA28 CEO, talked about how they're moving to a new HQ in downtown LA. It sounds incredible, a 500-seater auditorium, penthouse entertainment on the space, and also retail space as well. So they're really trying to say, look, we're going to be the home of the games for LA in the preparation. And then he joked, and for those inclined, there'll be a helipad to beat the traffic. and you could hear a pin drop, literally a pin drop. Everybody knows the IOC hate traffic, question marks, which then came when President Casey Wasserman was asked questions as well about the traffic in LA. And then he came out with another joke. The joke
Was it a joke? Was it a joke?
He told me it was funny and I should laugh, but this is what he said. The joke in LA is if you want to get traffic moving, either make every day a Jewish holiday or bring the Olympics back.
I wasn't laughing.
And I wasn't laughing. And he actually then said, you can laugh. That's funny. And again, not many people did apart from the American presentations. Look, he did go on and seriously say, look, we can, again, I thought this was, I don't mean to say that all Americans are like this, but for 17 days, we can fix any problem in the world. He went on to say, and it just felt a little out of touch. And I go back to what I said, how I finished the last podcast, which is the Olympics can't be immune to what's going on in the world. You can't sit there and just go, hey, we're America, we're going to make it great, because the rest of the world is not necessarily believing you. And huge question marks about the visas. And again, they said, Wasserman said, look, I've spoken to President Trump. I've spoken to Rubio, the Secretary of State. They understand that access is required for athletes and entourage. And there's a limited time frame, and we will have a team based in the State Department for the next 12 months. But I guarantee you there are IOC members sitting there today going, I'm not convinced we're going to be able to go certain nations. I think there are 12 already on the banned list to get into America, and then there are several more on watch lists, etc., etc. So there's going to be huge question marks over the next 3 or 4 years leading up to the games.
I spoke to someone today who giving me their reaction to the Seb Coe news, someone that actually knows Seb Coe through his political connections in the north of England when he was obviously working in this area where I lived with William Hague back in the day. And they said, well, when you look ahead to LA 2028, Donald Trump and all the stuff that's going to come down the road there, he may well have swerved something. And I can't help thinking that there might be some testing times ahead, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. And of course, we'll be reporting it here on Anything But Footy. One bit of news which broke just after we recorded yesterday, and I am more than happy about this, is that and we knew it was happening because it was on the UK Sport watch list, or want list rather, and that is the Grand Depart is coming back for the Tour de France. So we are bringing it back to this country. It's an ambitious plan as well. It's going to be going to England, Scotland and Wales. So we're going to have stages, men's race and the women's race too. And the men's race is going to start in Edinburgh as well, which I think has long been rumoured. We've talked about it on the podcast before. British cycling, I think, have to be congratulated. John Dutton has done a tremendous job, continued the really good work that is there, I think, in terms of what they're doing commercially. And we talked about this recently as well, about what sporting organisations might need to do commercially, so they're not just relying on the government pound or the national lottery money. What they've been doing commercially is fantastic. They've been running their own events, as we know, domestically, and now they're one of the partners, and there are a number of partners, of course, into government and everything else, bringing the Grand Depart back to this country. So I think that's absolutely fantastic and definitely something for us to watch out for.
And that's in 2027?
Yeah, so it's fantastic, I think, because it's one what we might refer to as a fallow year in our world, if you like. So it's not going to be competing against the Commonwealth Games and the European Athletics Championships, which are going to be highlights of the summer of 2026. Before that, of course, we'll have the Winter Olympics and the Paralympic Games. So, yeah, I really do think we can put huge focus on that as being one of those huge events. And, you know, I was there when Yorkshire hosted the Grand Depart, and I understand Yorkshire will have some sort of say in this one as well. There'll be some Yorkshire involvement in this one as well.
I think the female race is starting in Yorkshire, I think, isn't it? The Tour de France Femmes race is going to start in Yorkshire, and you're absolutely right. It's great that we haven't forgotten that Yorkshire really set the ball rolling, or set the wheels in motion. That's a better way of putting it. Way back in 2013, 2014.
Yeah, I mean, when you go back to like UK hosting the Tour de France or stage of the Tour de France back in the day, no one wanted it, and they raced down a disused bypass or dual carriageway. Then, of course, it was a game changer when it came to Yorkshire, and then, of course, it came from Cambridge, didn't it, into London as well. And there were some amazing scenes of the Tour de France coming into the centre of London. You'll remember that, I'm sure. So, yeah, this is fantastic that it's going to England, Scotland and Wales as well. And as I said, I think it will be a real focus, and hopefully the legacy from it. I'm not saying I think the Tour de Yorkshire necessarily should return, as much as I thought that was a great event, but hopefully I think that the better legacy for it is that the Tour of Britain, for both the men and the women, which British Cycling are now staging, will take on an increased importance.
So it's been quite a week for the Olympics. I suppose now they just sit back, relax, put the feet out, have a beer,
Get to Italy.
Look forward to Italy. But let me tell you that in April, and this is what's interesting, Thomas Bach, obviously, as you said, and as we heard from Kirsty Coventry, he's still in charge. In April, the executive board have to meet. The final venues for LA have to be agreed, although I think they're still struggling with some of them. The ticket prices are going to be released for LA. They want to sell 15 million tickets for LA, they've announced today. And there's the small matter of, as we say, Kirsty Coventry taking over. So lots to think about over the course of the week. We do hope that Kirsty Coventry enjoys some celebrations before the hard work really starts. You can check out all of our socials on Anything But Footy, the latest blogs on the website. We better get writing over the weekend with some more thoughts. Don't forget as well, the World Indoor Athletics Championships, the number one Olympic sport, carries on over this weekend as well.
Think Seb's en route there already?
I think he's on the plane. He's well out of there and he's off to China. Hopefully he'll be listening to the Spotify Olympics music playlist on Anything But Footy, and stay with us. We are moving on to Milan and looking ahead to LA.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.